Hello! Welcome back to another LDD building video. Today we are starting a new build, the United Forces Battleship from the Legend of Korra series. Well, Avatar: The Legend of Korra series, the sequel to The Last Airbender. And this turns out to be a pretty large build, I'm pretty sure it's the second biggest thing I've ever built, which is not an easy feat, so yeah, it's pretty exciting. I really like how it turned out. I'm excited for you all to see it. Hopefully my voice sounds a little bit better today. I was actually, last time I was recording things, I had finished a few videos, and it was like 4 a.m. So I had finished a few videos, and I looked down, and my microphone was not plugged in. And again, it was like 4 a.m., so I almost freaked out, but then I listened to them, and I didn't actually notice a difference in the voice quality. So I realized that my microphone hadn't actually been working at all the whole time. So yeah, after a lot more troubleshooting than you would think would be necessary, it's finally working all right. Hopefully it sounds a bit better. And yeah, so we are just working on the whole section at the bottom of the ship right now. It's like I guess you would call it a catamaran style, like two separate holes with a gap in the middle. So I have the basic straight section right here worked out, and I'm just putting the curve in between the two in there and trying to get that all lined up. So yeah, this first showed up, I think it was episode 10 of the first season, and was featured pretty prominently in the next episode, episode 11. And then it was actually used quite a bit throughout the series. It was featured pretty heavily in season 2 as the Northern Water Tribes battleship, just with a different paint job, and I think Varric had his own version as well, with a nice custom camo paint job named the Julie. And then it was, I think the next time it shows up after that was it was in the season 2 finale at Republic City, the actual United Forces one. And then it was in season 4's finale, and in both cases it was pretty easily destroyed by the giant spirit lasers, but you know. So yeah, it was featured pretty heavily, and that was mostly because in The Legend of Korra, they started using actual like CG models for some of the special vehicle designs, and I'm pretty sure they would just use them as almost kind of a reference and would draw over them, I believe. I'm not honestly quite sure, but so this was one of the models that they built, and instead of making new models all the time, they just kind of reuse them a lot. So, and they did the same thing with the Equalist mecha tank that was used up until the season 4 finale as well for the United Forces, and I'm pretty sure that was also used for the Northern Water Tribes. I might be wrong, but anyway, yeah, it's used pretty extensively in both cases, and that's just to save on resources, so, which is good because it's a very nice design. I've always loved it. I'm just so on the side of it, it was kind of built in a really cool way to make good use of all of the different, I guess the 3 different elements of, the 3 elements excluding air, because air had like 3 people, and I guess 4 people, and 3 of them are children at this point. So not really much use in accommodating them, but it had these little platforms on the side that the waterbenders could stand on to have easier access to the water, and you'll see the other 2 later, and I'll explain them then. But yeah, so I'm just adding that right now, getting the little, I end up changing that, but there's a little like ornate detail on the top of it too. Yeah. I'm just adding the windows here as well. Add something else. I lost my train of thought because I want to talk about, so I've always really liked this ship design, and actually I think I built a version of it in like 2012. So quite a while ago, that was just I've improved a lot since then. So it was pretty like amateurish. It was actually almost just as big, but it was very blocky and not super like accurate definitely not to the level I'm used to today. But it was nice to see the difference between the two, comparing them, and see how much my skill level has changed. Yeah, and this is the Earthbender's little, I guess it's not really a turret, like a little compartment they have on the side that opens up. This version doesn't open up because that would have been way too much, but in the series they open up on the side right here, and the Earthbenders can just like toss little discs out at whatever enemies they're facing, similar to the discs that are used in the pro bending sport in the series. So that was pretty cool to bring that in again. And it seems, I mean, they end up facing airplanes in their first appearance, really. And they seemed at least kind of effective, the Earthbenders, in dealing with that, thanks to these. So yeah, just adding that in there. I had to kind of wedge it into because it's a circle, and I just couldn't think of a real like nice way to incorporate it just onto the side, just because of the way it works and how it's kind of like in the middle of the wall, and it kind of, in the actual universe model, it shows through on the other side on the deck as well. So I had to find a way to incorporate it so that, it would be, I'm trying to think of the words, so that, well, you get it. I just had to incorporate it in a way that it would show through equally on both sides and still look like a circle. And the only way I could really think to do that was just make it an actual circle and kind of mold the hole around it. So that's what I'm doing right here. And it worked a lot better than I thought it would, to be honest. I really don't think it looks bad. And there's a little bit of detailing underneath it that we'll go through and add later. And you'll see how it incorporates into the deck as well. And it's really not that bad. It actually like looks nice. So we're just starting to build the hole up further forward and adding another platform. I think there's 4, 5, maybe like 5 or 6 platforms on each side. And they're all like, it's pretty much the same design all the way through. We're just copying it over. And here I'm reworking that little detailing on top to make it look a little nicer. Yeah, it's a lot of building up the whole so that everything just works together cohesively. I'm trying a similar thing that I just did on the detailing right here, and it sticks out too much, and it wasn't really working how I wanted it to. But I think I just ended up using one of those like 1x1 with the clips, not the clips, like the bar, yeah, right there. And I think that works really well, and it looks better once I actually paint that little section in gold as well. And this whole thing, I think, has really nice colors in Universe. It's like, it has grays. It's mostly just grays with a little bit of tan, some sand green, and gold, really. And in it, like, I think all those colors work together really nice. And it works absolutely for the vibe they're going for. And I'm not really sure how the Northern Water Tribe painted it, other than blue. I didn't really look at any reference photos for that, but Varric's version is really cool too. Unfortunately, that's just, I honestly don't know if there's a way to accurately represent that other than a ton of stickers, because I'm going to completely botch the explanation of this, but it's inspired by an actual like real world camouflaging technique where they just kind of paint random geometric patterns, and it's kind of designed to confuse the eye, and something about it actually works pretty well as camouflage. And I think it might have something to do with radar as well, but don't quote me on that. But anyway, so Varix is painted in those random geometric patterns, but it's white and blue, and it looks really cool. And I love that it's named the Julie, because she's honestly my favorite character in the series, by far. But if there was a way, I would do it, but I really don't think it's a good idea. And I don't think it would work well without a ton of stickers. So maybe once I build this in a physical way, with physical bricks, I can just get a bunch of stickers and do that. That might look nice. Yeah, so I went up to where the hole starts to curve inward, and I just put some hinge bricks right there. Just won't worry about it later, but it's nice to have them there right now. And I'm trying to, so the hole kind of starts to curve inward on the bottom way before it curves inward up top. And I was really trying to represent that right there, and it wasn't working out how I wanted it to. I did eventually find a way to make it work that I think looks great. But I wasn't there yet. We'll worry about that later. So for now, I'm just putting these in just kind of as a placeholder while I can work on everything else. Yeah, so a lot of this is just building up, like I said, the hole, and it's a lot of laying the groundwork for things that we'll do later when we get more advanced. And here's where it starts curving in the back. It's actually kind of nice that the actual in-universe model isn't curving the entire time. It's kind of straight for most of the ship, and then it starts to curve inward near the front and the back. And that made it so much easier to try to build this in Lego. There was a bit of working with curves, which I always hate, but it really wasn't too bad this time around. And yeah, I'm going to, later in the model, we'll rework this little curve section right here, because right now it's all those inverted arch bricks, which technically works, and it works the best. Like, that's probably the best way to do it in terms of accuracy, but those bricks specifically it uses a ton of them, and they aren't the cheapest bricks to find. So I think for now I just leave these arches right here, but we'll go in later, and unless I do it right now, but I'm pretty sure it's later, and add just a bunch of slopes that kind of represent the curve. Oh, maybe I do it right now, at least a little bit. Yeah, so we'll just do that. So that's going to be a lot cheaper should anybody want to build this. I'll most likely end up building this physically later on, but that just makes it so much cheaper to do rather than spending all the money on those individual brick types when there's really no need to, because nobody's really going to see the underside anyway, and this looks just as nice, honestly. So yeah, just adding all of those along the whole thing. And then I think we're just going to copy what we have over to the other side so that it will all look nice. I really like, when I'm working on big stuff like this, I really like doing anything I can to kind of help myself see the bigger picture as I'm working on it, just because it helps to motivate me when I know that it's going to look nice in the end, even if I can't see it all right now. So yeah, we're copying that over, just deleting the stuff in the middle that's going to get in the way. Hopefully it doesn't give us too much trouble. And I do have to mirror this section right here, because it's not, you can't just flip it around. It doesn't really work that way. But luckily, it is not too hard to do that, other than these little windows you have to go through and pick individually. But the rest of it you can just kind of mirror in sections, and it's really not that bad. Yeah, just get all the details, and then we'll just put the rest back on the other side. And there you go. It's about all mirrored. Just have to worry about those pesky hinge bricks. Yeah, we'll just put that back up on there. And there you go. We can see the whole, what it's going to start to look like. I think I end up lowering this by a whole, I just take a brick out of these layers. But other than that, that's pretty much how it's going to be. And we are extending this side a bit, just to be more accurate to what it's going to end up looking like. Yeah, so yeah, like I've said, this is really just a lot of building it up. And there's a lot of, it's kind of filler, really. There's not a lot of detail work right now. I was just putting all these bricks right in. But all the detail work will come later. But, with big models such as this, there's going to be a lot of blank spots that aren't necessarily super detailed. And especially with something that's coming from an animated series, that's not necessarily going to be the most detailed thing in the world in the first place anyway, just because that would be too hard to animate sometimes, and they were really working on a budget for this series. Not that it really shows, because it doesn't, but so yeah, and it starts to, for most of on the side of the hole, it's the same pattern really, but right here it starts to get a little bit closer together as we get towards the back. So we're just putting that right there and copying it all over, and then it will start to curve. And the back isn't probably the best part of the build. It looks nice, but it bugs. I'm such a perfectionist, but it bugs me because it doesn't exactly line up with the bottom of the hole like I wanted it to, and it's really not a big deal, especially because you don't really see it anyway. But just because I'm a perfectionist, it bugs me. Yeah. So yeah, I really love the idea of the United Forces in general. Like, I've always loved this ship. Oh yeah, you see I just lowered it all, so that looks a little bit nicer. But I always loved this ship ever since I first saw it, just for some reason. I just thought it looked really cool. So I've always wanted to build it, and always knew I would love building it, and I have before, but it's been a while since I've tried it, since I actually started to get decent with building. So I'm really happy with it turned out because of all of that. Especially because I love it so much. Yeah, it's one of those things, like, I did the same thing with the Season 2 premiere of Star Wars Rebels. As soon as I saw the ship that was in that trailer, I started building it. That's kind of how this was as soon as I watched the episode. I really would have loved to see them do even a bit more with the United Forces, because they were kind of always just there. And we saw General Iroh a couple times, who was, I thought, a really cool character, but it would have been cool to see a little bit more with them. But oh well, it's over now. And I think they do show up a little bit in the comics that are currently going on. Or at least the ones, I don't think they're in the current comic series. Because as of the time of this recording, that one takes place, I think, mostly in the Earth Kingdom. But the one before it took place in Republic City and had a lot of United Forces stuff in it. So yeah, doing a little more mirroring. That's a lot of this right now too, is mirroring stuff. Unfortunately, it would be so nice if LDD just had like a mirror function. I would use that so often. Yeah, so here's the tricky part, is lining up, because so they come outwards and they curve in. Luckily, it's a pretty extreme, so it can pretty much be represented as this angle right here. But so that then they start curving inwards towards the front of the ship and then meet up in the middle. And LDD is a little bit tricky to accomplish that in, because you have to know the exact angles that you're going to need in order to do that. Just because you can't mess with it like you could a physical thing in your hands. So it's a little tricky to line everything up, especially because right here I'm trying to fill in the gaps as best I can and not make it look so jarring with the transition. So that brings a whole other element to it as well, because that's just one more thing you have to worry about with all the angles and everything, and it probably changes a couple times as you learn new angles and what's going to work best. So I'm mostly, with doing this transition right here, I just did the slopes like you're seeing along this, what would you call it, It'll come to me. It's not going to come to me. This little like line right here, it will be gold in the end. But I'm just doing this transition right there because there's not much really space to do it throughout the rest of the hole in that vertical space. So that's, yeah, it works well enough. It gives the impression of a transition. And that's all you really need to do anyway. So yeah, we're just going to mirror that, put it on the other side, and then after that we'll try our best to get them to line up. It's not always so easy. Oh, there we go. Yep, and yeah, especially with all these angles and everything, those can be a real pain to mirror sometimes. So yeah, like right here is what I'm talking about. We're going to have to connect those two. But in order to do that, we have to know exactly which angle is correct and mess with that a lot. And also, LDD does this thing where if everything's not connected perfectly, it will, like, when you try to change the angle, it'll do it in weird amounts, which makes everything so much more annoying because you can't be exact unless they're lined up perfectly. So yeah, that's the first part. We'll continue with the rest of the whole section in the next part. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you're looking forward to the rest of the build. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe, and have a good one.